This is First Encounter, a podcast exploring both the foundations and the future of historical romance. Hello, everyone, and welcome to First Encounter. I am Andie James, a historical romance enthusiast and author, and I'm very excited because today we are joined by Pam, who many of you might know as Pammy823 Reads on either Instagram or TikTok, where she's actively talking about historical romance all the time, and we love it. And the champion of Harlequin Historicals, which we're going to shed a tear for. That's not our conversation today, but that can be a whole other episode. So I'm very excited Pam is here with me today because what we're going to be doing, this is our second deep dive. I'm very excited. And we are going to be discussing a Lorraine Heath novel, In Bed with the Devil. This was my, I believe, third Lorraine Heath. I have previously read The Duchess Hunt, of course. Everyone's read that because, you know, best epilogue to ever epilogue. And I've also read Waking Up with the Duke. That one, I took a class a few years ago with Sarah McLean. And it was about
She
conflict.
makes everyone read that.
Yeah, she's about it was about writing conflict. This is how I found my writing group, actually. We all took this class together. And she, you know, highlighted a bunch of books. And she highlighted that one. And I don't know what it was about the particular way she described that book that day. But that's the one everyone in the class immediately went to read. Like out of this huge list, like everyone was like, went to read that one. And it literally emotionally destroyed me. So, you know, it's okay. Anyways, Lorraine Heath, she's amazing. Yeah. I knew this based on what I'd read, but I hadn't read a lot because she's got, I don't know how many titles. I know Pam can tell us in a minute. How many?
She has over 55 published standalone historical romance titles. She's also written under several pen names. She's written YA under a pen name. She's written some novels with her son under a different name. Like, she is prolific, but her historical romance backlist is, I believe, 56 as it stands today.
56. Okay, that just blows my mind. And I mean, I know she's been writing for a long time, but as someone who currently has 5 books out, but yeah, so she has a lot more that obviously I need to read because I loved what I'd read from her, and I know she's a master of the craft. But anyways, the reason Pam knows those stats is because she decided last year to go give herself a project. And I will let her explain more about why. But she decided to read the entirety of Lorraine Heath's catalog. And I don't know if it's just the historicals or others. You'll have to tell us. But she read all of them. And so she is very knowledgeable about Lorraine Heath. So now I'm going to stop yapping, turn over to Pam to let her explain why she decided to do this and what she learned about Lorraine in the process.
Yeah, so I'm a Virgo Sun Capricorn rising, which I think explains most of what you need to know about why I approach reading this way. So I've been reading historical romance for a very long time. I started reading the genre when I was 11. I found a rack of Harlequin historicals at my library, and, you know, the rest is history. This is that rotating rack at the library gets you. It gets you, especially when you're a preteen and you're like, I just want something to read. And I've always been the kind of person who likes to go, you know, an inch wide and a mile deep into a topic. I know there are a lot of people out there who've read very widely. You know, they've read a couple books by different authors. That's not who I am as a reader. I really like to get to know somebody as an author. Like, I want to get in there with them and figure out what makes them tick. And I've done a bunch of backlist projects in the past. So like I've read, you know, the entire backlist. I've read, like, you know, all of Tested Air, obviously, all of Sarah McLean. I do it a lot with romantasy and fantasy authors as well. Because that's my other love.
Yeah.
But I, like 3 years ago, decided to go and completely seclate this backlist because I'd read some of her books when I was a teenager, but hadn't read anything that was published past like 2002. Because that was where my library cut off. My library didn't have any of her books post 2002. So I hadn't read any of those. And that was like, I hadn't read The Wallflowers because of that, you know, like my library just didn't have them. And this was before it was really easy to go online at your library and just request stuff. This was, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. We didn't really have access to all of that. So I was like, I want to go read all of Kleypas. So I did that. In
Uh-huh.
6 months, I read Kleypas's whole backlist. I read/reread the entire thing. I did like a retrospective, and I was like, I love this. So I was like, who's next? And I had picked up a couple of Lorraine Heath titles over the previous year, and I was like, I really vibed with her storytelling. Like, she just
Yeah.
spoke to me. Um, I class historical romance in sort of two camps. There's like the wittier, lighter, effervescent books, and then they're like the
Yes.
grittier books that deal
Yes.
with the darker side of life. Lorraine is sort of the standard bearer for the grittier, darker side of life author, and that's where I live in historical romance. I love the other books, but like this is where I eat. And so I was like, you know what? I want to just dig in. And I had no clue what I was getting myself into, Andie. I really didn't know the depth of her backlist when I was like, I'm going to go read Lorraine Heath. The woman's been writing since 1994. Her debut
Okay.
came out in 1994. I will not tell you how old I was in 1994. It will make everybody here angry. But yeah, she's been writing since then, and she was publishing 2 to 3 books a year
Mhm.
since 1994. And she has two sort of segments of her career. She has her career where she was writing about the Reconstruction era Texas
Yes.
and like a bunch of different heroines who had connections to that part of the world, even if the books took place in England, they all tied back to Reconstruction era Texas. And
Okay.
then in 2008, she hard reset her career. She like unplugged it and plugged it back in and started writing in 1851 London. And then she wrote a whole new universe because
Mhm.
she's Lorraine Heath. So why not? Why not completely reset the entire world that you write in and just start from scratch in 2008? And so I had no clue. I knew that she had written books that took place in Texas. I knew she'd written, typical Victorians. I had no clue the breadth of it. I just sort of went in and was like, I'll figure it out as I go. And
So did you read them in
56 books
order?
later, ish. So
Ish.
I
Okay.
started off with her later books because at that point I was going with what I had in my
Right.
possession and what I could get
Well,
easily from the library.
makes
And
sense.
then once I got my arms around her backlist and I was like, oh crap, these are all interconnected and I don't know what's going on. I hate this. I need to know what's going on. I got my act together and I started reading them in order. But fun fact, Lorraine Heath's publication order is not actually the order in which you should read all of her books if you'd like to know what's
Okay.
going on.
Okay.
She's very crafty and they overlap in different ways. And like, especially her later series, they overlap to a point where there's even a couple books that you can tandem read that come from different series. Yeah.
Wow.
Like I'm nuts. I'm nuts.
What a
And I was like, I'm going to
mastermind.
tandem read these and just see what happens. And it totally worked. So yeah, I got into this because I just really liked her writing and I wanted to read her
Mhm.
backlist. I had no clue what I was getting into. And it took me like 14 months to do
Okay.
the whole backlist on top of everything else I was reading, all the other stuff I had
Right.
going on. I made it through all 56-ish books, came out the other side and was like, oh, this woman is a master of her craft.
Yeah.
Um, like she is the queen of the bananas plot. I think we all know that. We all know and love that. If you ever read Gorilla Twins, I know, Andie, that's got to be on your list soon.
It's on my list. It is definitely on my
Yeah,
list because as an
that
avid
series.
Fated Mates listener,
Yeah,
how can you not?
that series, The Hellions of Havisham, is actually my favorite historical romance series of all time.
Okay.
So the whole series, the first book of that series is actually my favorite heroine in all of Lorraine Heath's backlist.
Good to
Just
know.
fantastic writing. But like we know her as the queen of the bananas plot, but that's not actually like what Lorraine Heath is interested in. What I
Yeah.
really learned coming out of this project is that her innate interest is in character psychology.
Oh,
She has a
yeah.
back she has a background in psychology.
Okay. That
And
doesn't
so
surprise me.
yeah, like when you read her books, you're like, oh, this totally makes
Yeah.
sense. Because she's so interested in how people respond to trauma. And in the earlier part of her career, it was how did people respond to the Civil War? Like,
Mhm.
how did the American Civil War impact these people? And these were people who lived in the South, who were objectively on the wrong side of that conflict. And like, how did that trauma impact that community and impact those people individually? And what lingering tail did that trauma have on the future generations? Because she starts in her Reconstruction era writing like right after Appomattox, like 2 months after Appomattox, and then carries it forward into like I think the 1890s.
Okay.
So, what does that tale of that trauma look like? And then in her later writing, when she resets to Victorian London, as you could see in this book and in some of her other ones, she's very interested in like how poverty impacts people, in how the deeply messed up justice system of the Victorian age impacted people. She also digs in. She has a couple series later on that, like, to me, are directly tied to the Me Too movement. Like, they came out at the same, they were written during the Me Too
Okay.
movement. Like,
Yeah.
she's
Because
very
she is
tied
still
into all of
writing. We
that.
should say that too.
Yes.
Yeah. She's
Yes,
still
she
putting books
is.
out. She just
Yeah, she
finished
had a book come out
the
last year.
Chessmen series and then she's writing.
Yeah, so The Chessmen is a completed series, and then
Okay.
she decided to go back to a series she hadn't touched since 2017, which is The Scandalous
Oh,
Gentleman of St. James. So
okay.
that's actually the sequel series to the book that we read.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought this was the Scoundrels of St. James is what we were reading, but yes.
She does second gen, and let me tell you, there's nobody who does second gen like Lorraine. Like, she ruins their lives just enough to make them interesting. Whereas, like, a
Okay.
lot of other people with second gen, you're like, what do these people have to complain about? Like, they're so
Yeah.
happy. Their parents were happy.
Your
Everybody's
parents were
happy.
in love and
Yeah.
yeah.
No, Lorraine's like, let's give them a train crash.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
like, let's kill their wife and kid. Let's give them a train crash. Let's, just give
Oh,
them
jeez.
let's just
Yeah.
ruin their lives a little bit.
Now you're just making me want to do my own Lorraine Heath project, but I ain't got time for that. It's just, I
It,
wish.
it was it was big.
Yeah.
I don't recommend unless you have a lot of time.
Which I do not, but that's okay. Well, that's great. This is fantastic. And there's so many books of hers I do want to read. I guess two things off of that. One, you saying that, you're fascinated with the psychology and you like the gritty and explaining how like her initial books were examining kind of that post-Civil War. Like that makes sense to me in my brain because recent-ish. I know in your stories you were talking about how you're all into um the Regency of like the people coming back from the Napoleonic Wars and
Oh,
like
give it like put it in my veins. I love a
yes.
Napoleonic War hero.
We love dealing with our trauma and our grief and our all of that. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. But I do follow you on Instagram. And so I knew that you were doing all this with Lorraine last year and seeing some of your commentary on it. So when I started the podcast, I asked you if you wanted to talk about Lorraine and I let you choose the book. And you chose this one. You chose In Bed with the Devil. So why this one?
This, I think, is the best on ramp for somebody to reading Lorraine Heath. So this is the book that was her hard reset. This is the book where she unplugged her career and she plugged it back in 2008. So
Okay.
this is the novel that builds the whole world she's going to write in going forward. I actually toyed around with, I almost picked another book that was a little bit later in all of this process. It's actually
Yeah.
part of the same series as Waking Up with the Duke. But I was like, you know what? I think this book is so indicative of who Lorraine Heath is as a writer.
Hmm.
And it also helps people to understand, like, am I going to like this?
Good.
I think
Yeah.
there are those books for certain authors that are like, am I going to like this author? And there are certain books that are a great litmus test. I think
Yeah.
this book is a phenomenal litmus test for that. And it also exemplifies everything that makes a Lorraine Heath book a Lorraine Heath book. It's a little bit bananas. We have the hero who's got one foot in the gutter, one foot in society. We have the competent heroine. We have her dealing with trauma on multiple levels. Like, this book is Lorraine Heath sort of distilled down to her core essence.
Okay. I love it. I love it. And well, I think this goes without saying, but we're still a newer podcast. So I will say spoilers are going to abound from this point on. So,
Many
um,
spoilers.
many, many spoilers. We're not going to vaguely talk about this book. We are going to talk about this book. So, if you have not read it, press pause, go read it, come back to this episode, please. But yeah, come back to this episode and read about it. Or if you don't mind spoilers, I'm a person that just listens. I'm just reckless. I just listen anyways. And then I go read the book. So, I mean, you do you. But spoilers are going to abound from this point. Um, there's a lot of things we can talk about. We sent each other lists of topics, but I want to start with just two things when it comes to these, said a little bit of a bonkers plot. And I don't think this book is insane compared to some, but it is a little bit. But one thing that surprised me, because I did not do any research to this book, I wanted to go in as blind as possible. I know like the premise of gorilla twins and things like that, but like this one I hadn't heard a lot about. So I was like, let's keep it that way. Let's just read it. Let's just get our opinion. So I was not prepared for the very Oliver twist of it all. Um, So kind of the premise of this entire series, this is a 5-book, well, kind of 4.5-book series. The last one's
Yeah.
novella length, but
4.5.
4.5. Basically, it's The Scoundrels of St. James is the series title. And essentially, our hero in this book, Luke, is Oliver. And then some of his friends who make up the heroes of the following books in the series were essentially the other boys in Fagin's gang. You know, the boys who took in on the street, and ladies. Yes, we cannot
Yes.
forget lovely
Can't
Franny.
forget Franny.
Can't forget Franny. She's very important. And I was very unprepared for that. And like it didn't like I caught on quick and then I was like, okay. And I could hang with it. I didn't dislike it. But what surprised me is that instead of it just being kind of like, we're using this as a vague setting for setting up these stories, like she leaned into it, and I don't know if it was just a little wink or a little whatever, but she has Catherine, our heroine, actually read Oliver Twist to her father at one point. And I was like, what? I was like, why are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
I was like, you're like breaking this fourth wall with us. Are you letting us in on the joke? Like, it just surprised me. I don't think it was good or bad, but it's just like, what is she doing?
You just have to read the rest of the series,
Okay.
because Lorraine is very aware of what she's doing,
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
she addresses it. I know this is spoilers for In Bed with the Devil. I will not give spoilers for the rest of the series. That
Okay.
is my promise. So I'm not going to spoil anything else in the series, but she does come back to this.
Okay. Yeah, I just was like, oh, instead of
Yeah.
just it being part of this world, she's like acknowledging this as a thing. So I don't know. I just found that very interesting. And then the other piece where I would say it's a little bonkers is our initial premise. So, um, because our hero Luke is essentially Oliver. Okay, now I will admit I don't know if I've ever actually read the book by Dickens. I have definitely seen the musical, but it's been years. So my understanding of this is very much just through cultural references. So I don't believe in Oliver he actually has killed anyone. But in this book, our hero killed for righteous reasons, which we'll also get into. But he killed a man who we find out is his uncle. And then the way that he's like discovered by his grandfather is he comes to find the guy who just killed his son. And he's like, oh, that's my lost grandson. So he's always kind of been not fully accepted as the Earl in society because of the way that his grandfather kind of brought him into the fold. Most people don't believe he's actually his grandson. Neither does Luke himself, actually. And so he's always kind of got this reputation. And so our heroine, Catherine, she decides to take advantage of that. And at the beginning of the book, she approaches him and asks him to kill someone for her.
Why not?
Why not? Why not? And so that to me, I guess, is the bonkers piece. So both kind of the overall structure of the using Oliver, which isn't bonkers. It just took me by surprise. And it's just a different way to approach the story. But then it's like, we've got a hero who we know from the get-go is actually a murderer, not rumored, but like actually is. Well, I'd say killer, not a murderer. I don't know. That sounds better in my head because he had reasons. It wasn't like
Yeah.
I'm just need
Yeah,
to kill
he had
somebody.
reasons with a capital R.
Reasons with a capital R, yeah. But she, we're kind of startled. But the thing I said I get back to in terms of the reasons, and one thing that I found interesting, right, is she kind of sets it up to be a little bonkers, and we're like, holy crap, like what's going on? But very quickly, we understand the why behind both of them. And we realize that they're not terrible people. They have very real reasons for him why he did kill his uncle, not knowing his uncle at the time, but why he did kill him, and then also why she wants who she wants killed. And it was just interesting because I was like, I understood immediately why she did it so quickly because we want to like these people. We want to root
Mhm.
for them. They are our hero and heroine. But part of me was like, dude, like let them be, if you're going to be bad, lean into it. Like, don't redeem them so quickly. And I understand how ironic this is for me to say, as the author that I am, who cannot write a bad person to save her life. Critique I got in my first series, when I gave it to someone to read was like, it's okay to like make your characters do something bad. So like,
Yeah.
I understand me saying this is
Yeah,
very
so I
hypocritical,
think
but
that why Lorraine does this, like at least
Mhm.
my reading of it in this particular book, like why she goes this route is because there are plenty of evil people on page in this book.
That's
Like
very
we
true.
don't need anybody else who's morally
Yeah.
gray. Like Luke and Catherine, again, you talked about this opening scene. Luke's
Mhm.
minding his own business. He is in his house. He's not bothering anybody. He's just doing what the Earl of Claiborne, who might not be the Earl of Claiborne, does. And
Yes.
then this woman wanders into his house and is like, I need you to kill a man for me. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you who he is. You just
Yeah.
have to accept the job and I'm
Yes.
going to pay you. And she's like, I have more money than God. I don't need your money. Why
Yeah.
would I do this for you? And she's like, because you want to, because you're a killer and you want to kill people.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, serious. I'm in my house. I'm in my house. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm in my house. And so, we have this like kind of wild setup there, but as we get into the story, like you realize how terrible the external forces are on
Yeah.
these people. Like you see
Yes.
what Luke has dealt with in his life. You see the fact that he was pretty horribly abused on the streets. All of the scoundrels were.
Yes.
They lived this like hand to mouth existence with a lot of abuse. And then even when they got into society, they're still on the outside looking in. And you see, who Catherine wants killed, like not a
Mhm.
good person,
Not a
objectively
good
terrible
person.
human, objectively awful. And so I think for me personally in this book, if Luke or Catherine were really morally gray or like unreliable narrators, I think it might be too much.
No, I hear that. And like I said, I don't have a problem with her doing that, but I just was like, if you're setting them to be terrible people, it seems like you redeemed them pretty quickly. That was my only thing. I don't have an issue with it, but I hear what you're saying about there's a lot of other stuff. And so we need them to be pretty solid. But yeah, it was really funny though when I'm reading this. I'm like, the audacity of this woman to think she can just not give a reason or a name and he's just gonna like kill someone for her. Like
Hey, she's a duke's daughter. Like,
she is.
she's like, I'm
Yeah.
the daughter of a duke. You're the killer earl. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you do this for me? You like
Why
killing
wouldn't
people,
you?
don't you? So
Yeah.
that's her whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, what I love about that like their first couple encounters too is how
Mhm.
surprised Catherine is that like Luke is a human.
Yeah.
Like, she is
Yeah.
so surprised that he has any vestige of humanity left
Mhm.
because of his origins, because of what he's rumored to have done. She's like, "Oh, well, you must just not have any soul." And then
Yeah.
he just says like a couple of things to her. And she's like, "Oh, oops. Like,
Right,
I made
yeah.
a big
Oh,
mistake
you're
here.
like
Like,
a
you
real
actually are a
person.
person."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he hasn't been involved in society, so there's rumors that abound, and she's basing everything she knows on that. But still, I'm like, "Girl, come on." But it's okay. It's okay. She quickly learns, and it's great.
Yeah. It's quite funny too because when you look at Lorraine's backlist as a whole and you look at like the kind of character she's really interested in, like Luke is her type. He
Yeah.
is her type. Like she loves this kind of guy who like knows how to wield a knife but can also waltz. Like that is her type to a T. And from the jump in this book, you're like, oh, okay, I know what you're into. I
Oh,
got
yeah.
you.
Oh,
Like you
for
clock it
sure. For
immediately.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the gentleman, but the roof as well, and yeah.
The scoundrel.
The scoundrel, exactly. No, it's great. I love it. I love it. But so the other piece of this book that is not bonkers, but maybe surprising, is that he, again, the way she writes this and sets this up is perfect because we can tell immediately that it's not really a love triangle, but it's a love triangle. He is planning to marry Franny, who we mentioned before. She was another one of Fagin's children, so he grew up with her. They were partners in crime together, if you will. And then once his grandfather kind of reclaimed him as his grandson, brought her, along with their other friends, into his home to kind of educate and train in the ways of gentle society, polite society. So he has known forever and loved Franny, and he's planning to propose to her, marry her. And so this attraction he has to Catherine is very, very inconvenient and upsetting. And yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean, she's upending his carefully laid plans. He has spent
yes,
20 years believing that he was going to marry Franny, that he was going to marry,
hmm,
and her name is Franny Darling, which just
yes,
adds a whole extra layer onto it. That like Luke was always going to be the savior of the group. Like Luke has this very messed up savior complex throughout this whole book, like because
yes,
he's the reason they got out of the gutter. You know, his connection to the old gent, to his like pseudo grandfather, who is really his grandfather, but he doesn't believe it. Like that's the reason why they all got saved, why they all got taken out of the gutter. And like
yes,
you watch him as he has this idea in his mind that he's then going to save Franny further. You know, he saved Franny
hmm,
multiple times throughout his life. And like his ultimate saving of Franny is to marry her, to make her the Countess of Claiborne, and then she will never have to work a day in her life or do anything else in her life. Like he's going to bubble wrap her
hmm,
and just put
yes,
her someplace. Like
hmm,
he's going to wrap her up and put her someplace where life cannot touch her ever again. And then in swans Catherine, and she looks him dead in the eye and is like, "You are an idiot, sir."
yeah.
And he just can't help it. He can't help that he's just obsessed with it. He's obsessed with the woman who tells him
Yeah,
no.
he needs that challenge, right?
Mhm.
And it's interesting though, because I never normally, I'm like, love triangles, I can do them, I can't. Sometimes they just have to be well done. And I've
Mhm.
seen them well done recently. Like, I love Lindsay Barrett's book, Savannah Royals. Like, that was fantastic. They can be done really well. But I think the reason this one worked for me is it's not truly a love triangle. Like, he does deeply and truly love Franny,
Mhm.
but it's very obvious to the reader from the get-go, if not to Luke himself, that that love is very much the love of, like, she's almost like a sister to him because of how they were raised and brought up. He
The
doesn't
way that
think
he
of her in
talks
a
about
romantic
her.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, the way that he talks about her. So fun fact for everybody, I work for the Catholic Church in one of my other lives as a classical singer. So I spend a lot of time in Catholic Church. And the words that Luke uses to describe Franny are the words
Mhm.
that are used around the Eucharist. Like that was reading through this time, I could not separate myself from like the way he talks about her is like she's the Eucharist or she's a saint. Like she's
Mhm.
always adored. She's like
Mhm.
adored and glorified and never loved.
She's held apart in a way. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's like on a pedestal she's going to intercede for their souls somewhere
Mhm.
instead of being a woman that he actually wants to like have a physical relationship with, to like
Yes.
have by his side in his life.
Yes. And Catherine from the start, he sees very much as a woman, and he's very attracted to her, obviously. Um, and Franny knows it's never going to happen between him, and he doesn't love her like that, even though he can't see it. And so it's not like he's breaking her heart, which is why we're kind of okay, I think, too, with everything that's happening with him still thinking in his head, like, oh, I'm denying my love for Catherine because I'm going to marry Franny.
Yeah, but the thing about Franny is that Franny treats these boys with kid gloves. She treats
Yes.
all of the scoundrels with kid gloves. So, you know, she was sort of like the linchpin of their group. Like when you look at the group dynamics, especially across the whole series, but like at the beginning of this book, you look at those group dynamics, it's Franny who holds everyone together. Like everyone sort of orbits around her. And she like refuses to hurt anybody's feelings in this
Hmm.
group of men. Like she won't tell any of them the actual hard truth. And so Luke comes to her and is like, "I want to marry you." And she's like, "I really don't want to marry this guy, but I can't tell him that. So I'm
I
going to
can't
make up
tell him
some
no.
BS about make up some BS about being nervous about society and
Yeah.
make him jump through 8 million hoops when I really don't want to marry him." but I just can't tell him the truth because I know that it would devastate him and I treat my boys with care. Like she's got this really messed up dynamic with all of them. And it's so funny because when this series was coming out, I know a lot of people had very strong opinions about who Franny should end up with. And they were like picking from the scoundrels. And as I was reading this series, I was like, Franny can't marry any of these guys.
No.
Not a one of these putzes sees her as like an actual woman. Like
Yes.
they see her as this like this creature that's apart from them and she can't be honest with them. Like that's not a relationship. And so you watch over the course of this book as Franny's like just too scared to tell Luke the dang truth.
Yeah.
Like she just can't do it. And they're both just sort of like dancing around this awkward fact that like they don't want to marry each other. Like they
Yeah.
want the comfort of being
Mhm.
together forever, but they don't want an actual marriage.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's true. I think the only minute that I had pause in the book with the whole dynamic, I guess, of the three of them is when Catherine and Luke finally consummate their love. They sleep together. And because she knows that he's planning to marry Franny, I think she suspects that it might not be the match, that Luke is still pretending it is. But, she's aware of this and she keeps saying, like, no, I'm just preparing you for Franny. It's going to be fine. But she goes ahead with it anyways, kind of justifying it in her brain, like, well, they're not engaged yet. And I'm like, that's a little sus, but it's okay. Like, I'll go with you because you two are truly meant for each other. And, like, I, but that was like the only thing that gave me pause. And I obviously got over it and didn't really have an issue with it because it was a great scene. So,
Oh, it was a fantastic scene.
yeah.
Yeah, I the way that the first time I read this book, I was like, "Ooh." I had like the
Mhm.
kombucha face the first time that I read this one. I was like, "Ooh, I don't know that I love this. That feels very icky to me."
Yeah.
But going back to this book this time, the way that I saw that scene is that Catherine, and again, this comes from context of like having spent a lot more time with this author and just like really sitting with this book for a while. Catherine is such an oldest daughter in like every
Yes.
sense of the word.
Yes.
Her brother, I hate her brother. I'm sorry. Anybody who likes Sterling, like you can just pound sand. Like I hate this man. But he left her alone to deal with their dying father.
Yes.
So her father, the Duke, is dying. He's had multiple strokes. He can't talk. He can't move. Like he's completely bedridden. Catherine is his primary caregiver. Yes, she's hired help, but like everything falls on her.
Yeah.
She's been managing all of the estates by herself. Like she's handled everything. She's been dealing with investments. Like she was not trained for this. She was trained to run a household. And instead she's running a ducal estate because her brother swanned off to Europe to go like just sow his wild oats and lick his own wounds instead of helping his sister.
Right.
And on top of all of this, she's got her best friend Winnie, who's married to a schmuck, like just like the worst man. She's married to the worst man possible.
This is the
And
man
she's
she
trying,
wants to kill
yes, he's an
for
abuser.
reasons.
So she's trying to hold that woman together and that
Yeah.
relationship together. Then now she's got this guy who's like train my future wife. She's in love with him, but she's going to train his future wife
Yeah.
anyway. And she's
Yeah.
like, "Look, dude, I get one shot at this to just
Yeah.
have something for myself.
Yes.
I get one shot to have like one night for just me.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take it. I'm going to
And
take
that
it
I'm
because
behind. Yeah.
yeah. Like that reading through it this time, I was like, oh, it's so like it was so clear to me by the time we got to that point in the book, because that's after like the disastrous dinner where
Yeah.
like Catherine explodes at Luke because he's being terrible. And like Franny, Luke, and who else was it? Bill who's at dinner?
Yes.
It's Bill, yes.
Mhm.
So Franny, Luke, and Bill are all at dinner, and Catherine is having to carry this conversation on her back because these three people who have known each other their whole lives cannot be bothered to have a conversation at dinner. Like
Yeah.
she's doing all of the work in this relationship. And finally, she's like, you know what? I'm going to take it. I want him. They're not engaged. I'm going to do it. And I was like, you
Yeah.
go, girl. You
Yeah.
get yours.
Yes. No. I mean, we know it's gonna work out in the end, so it's fine.
Yeah. And I was like,
Um
get yours. Like you have
Exactly.
earned it. Go get yours.
Yeah. But it was interesting the way it was set up because I can see how readers could have an adverse reaction to that, obviously. So I'm like, bold of you, Lorraine. I like it.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, if you have a problem with a love triangle where, like, no one's cheating, but you're
Yeah.
okay with the murder of it all, like, I
Well,
do
that's
have
true.
some questions.
That's true.
I do
I was gonna
I sometimes have some questions for romance readers, and, like, I am an avowed romance reader. I've been in the genre for 20 plus years, but, like, why is the love triangle our hard line, but, like, murder's okay?
I know. Well,
So,
I know. It's just the
no,
cheating
that's
thing is like a hard line for
yeah,
some people. I mean,
that's why I am down with this
I was
book.
gonna say I get it, but I actually don't. But like, yeah. No, I mean, we all have our things, I guess. Well, I'm not gonna go there because that could open a whole other episode's worth of conversation about our broader society and the way it views and what's the word I'm looking for? Filters, scrutinizes? No, I don't know.
Something like
Whatever, when
that.
it comes to sex versus all the violence that's allowed on TV. One of the other pieces that you brought up, and I think this is interesting as well. We just mentioned Catherine's friend Winnie and her terrible, terrible husband, the Duke of Avondale, who is the man that Catherine would like Luke to kill for her. Um, and it's a pretty grim and real picture of domestic violence that Lorraine paints here. She does not beat around the bush at all. Um, and while we've certainly seen that in other books, and we know she really leans into the idea at first too of how at the time this book takes place in
One.
1851. Yeah. Um, and it's very much, woman becomes the property of her husband. Like literally, like that was how the law showed it. The property of her husband. He can do what he want. We've seen this in other books. Um, but I guess I was just surprised, not in a bad way again, but just surprised by how much she showed and how clear she was. Because there's a point in the book where, I mean, we get signs along the way that he's been physically abusing her. Um, she never truly admits to it, but Catherine knows, suspects all these things, and we see her wince at certain points and things. But
Mhm.
there's one point where he severely, severely beats her up and injures her. Like could have killed her. And the thing I think that took me by surprise though is Lorraine literally is like, "Oh yeah, he raped her." She just puts it out
Mhm.
there. And that's something I feel like I see people skirt around, but not directly say a lot. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, you, I was so proud of Lorraine. I was like, you just lay it out there that this is a dastardly man and these things happened.
Mhm. Yeah, most like the way that she approaches the storyline is very interesting to me because the obvious way to put DV on page would have been to have the heroine be like on the run from her
Yes.
abusive spouse. We see that all the time in contemporary. That's like a mainstay of contemporary or romantic suspense. But in this case, Lorraine has Catherine's friend. So it's the heroine's best friend who's in this domestic violence situation. And what I find to be so fascinating about this is it ties into like this exploration of trauma's impact on the community because
Yeah.
Winnie's violent relationship with her husband, like the fact that her husband is abusing her, he's beating her, he's raping her, and it's on page. It's not
Right.
just impacting Winnie, it's impacting Catherine. It's impacting Wit, Winnie's son.
Her son.
It's impacting all the people around them, and it's this like it's this circle of trauma that just comes out of this violent
Yeah.
relationship. And I really appreciated seeing that. I mean, like,
Hmm.
hi, a TMI moment here, but like my father is very similar to the Duke of Avondale, like very similar man to that, like just not a good person. Like I haven't spoken to him in over 20 years voluntarily. But like I lived that life. Like I've been the child in that home and I know exactly what it does to like the people in that community and to their like to your wider circle, like the way that that sort of abuse like radiates outward.
Mm.
And the way Lorraine handles this is it's so tactful
Yeah.
and it's so honest about
Yes.
that experience. And like this was again, it's 1851. Like Winnie was her husband's property. The Married
Uh-huh.
Women's Property Act was not passed until 1870, the first
Nope.
version of it. So her wealth was his, her body was his, her children were his.
Yeah.
So if she left, he could take Wit.
Yes.
If she left, he could come after her. Like, he was fully within his right to come after her and do whatever he wanted to her.
Yes.
And, like, that reality is so stark on page and really speaks to this, like, this just willingness to confront the ugliest parts of society. Like, this book is unafraid. It is
Yes.
unafraid of confronting those, like, deeply, deeply ugly parts of society. And it's in the hands of a master. It's in the hands of somebody who, like, understands the way to do that through
Yeah.
character and not through shock value. Like, you're
Right.
shocked by what Avondale does. You're shocked by the fact that he, beat and raped his wife over a party guest because
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
ridiculous thing to do. Like, it's an outrageous
Mhm.
thing to do to another person. But that's not on page for shock value. It's
No.
basically an expected escalation at that point. Like,
Yeah.
we the reader are just waiting for the other shoe to drop in that relationship because of the way that Lorraine has built it up over the course of the novel, the way that Catherine
Yeah.
has been interacting with Winnie. Like, we're just waiting for that to happen. And when it finally does, you're
Yeah.
devastated for Winnie, you're devastated for Catherine, but you're also like,
Mhm.
can we finally kill this man?
Yeah, I know. You want it to happen. You're just ready. You're waiting. Um, so she makes the kind of bonkers or dastardly plot. Like, you're like, yes, this makes sense. I want to do this. Let's do this
Yeah.
completely.
Let's go put him in a box somewhere. Like, I'm done with him.
Yeah, yeah. And then when in the end, when they don't actually kill him, I'm like, dude, this is gonna haunt you. Like, just kill this man. It's like it just turned me into this
Yeah.
ruthless being. Um,
They messed up.
yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything further. They messed up.
I can infer just based on who characters are in
Mhm.
the upcoming books and the rest of the series, but, yeah, no,
Absolutely.
it's but I really applaud Lorraine for the way she does it. Like you said, she does it masterfully because, as you said, it is shocking when you read it, but it's not because, all the groundwork's been laid, and she's not doing it to shock you. It's not
Mhm.
gratuitous in any way. It's very factual. It's just this is what happened. She's not using the overt language. I mean, she literally says the word rape, and it's shocking
Mhm.
in that she uses the term, but it's not shocking. It's like she's not using that word to make you be like, oh, you know. And so it's just, yeah, she does it so well, but it's just such a, it's it's a horrific but necessary scene for the way she has set up the entire book.
Well, and the way
And
that everyone treats Winnie too, like,
mhm,
is so indicative of the care that she brought to the storyline because, like, ev nob nobody is, like, blaming Winnie for what happened. No one
mhm.
blames Winnie for what happened. Catherine gets frustrated with Winnie over
Yeah,
the course of the book because she's like, I'm watching someone I love be hurt." Like,
yeah,
she's watching someone she really loves be injured, and that's
mhm,
killing her inside.
yeah,
But no one's ever terrible to Winnie over this. No one blames Winnie for being in this
no,
situation. Like, everybody understands, like, all the scoundrels fully understand the way the law is stacked against women and
yes,
stacked against the poor and stacked against children. Like, the
yes,
scoundrels get it, you know?
yes,
They are locked in and they're like, "We understand that you had no say in this. You were married off to this man."
mhm.
And so they do what they can to help her with that understanding. But it's like, again, in the hands of somebody who is less sensitive, I think this plot really could have gone awry, but Lorraine gets it.
So, the one piece of this book that I didn't love, I guess, is a little bit of how well, not how it ends, the actual end is fine, but, um, Catherine does find herself pregnant at the end of the book. But it doesn't actually have any bearing on how the story plays out. He chooses her to be with her instead of Franny before he's aware that she's pregnant. So he's not choosing her because she's pregnant, which we wouldn't like anyways, right? And so I just was kind of like, why? Like it didn't feel necessary for me. The only thing I could think of was she was about to move to America so she could restart her life and raise this child, which I get it, but and it shows her strength. It just didn't feel necessary to me.
I have thoughts.
All right,
Uh,
I want them.
so, so this book came out in 2008. So
Mhm.
it was probably written '06. sometime around
Probably.
then,
Yeah.
like '06, maybe early '07, depending on how fast Lorraine's publisher works. So this book was published at like the height of George W. Bush's administration.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, as someone who was a teenager during this time period, I went through the joy that was sex education under the George W. Bush administration, which was basically keep your knees together and hold an aspirin between them. Like that was
Mhm.
essentially what sex ed was in the mid 2000s. And Lorraine tackles this in several of her books from this era, where she will have the heroine end up getting pregnant, or she'll deal with purity culture in some capacity. And while she's not overtly out here saying I'm political, like look at me, I'm writing about political stuff, like she's a person living in the world. She's absorbing what's going on around her. And Catherine is, yes, in her early 20s, but her mother died when she was pretty young.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to have any close female family members. There is really nobody for her to have asked
Yeah.
to get information. I mean, who's going to ask Winnie? Was Winnie going to have good information for her in her like
No.
terrible abusive relationship? No.
Yeah.
There was basically nobody for Catherine to ask for help when it comes to
Right.
like understanding contraception. And she kind of just wanders into this physical relationship with Luke, being like, I'm going to have this time. I'm going to have a good time, and it's not going to be a long time. And then I'm going to go. And she doesn't bring anything up during
She
during
does
their
not.
intimate scenes. And Luke
Yes.
doesn't think about it because Luke has only really been with sex workers. Like it's been with women
Right.
he's paid who
Yes.
know what they're doing and who are a little bit, more up on
Mhm.
what they should be taking care of. And so I think in this scene, like we kind of see the consequences of a lack of education
Yeah.
on page, which is this young woman who doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know what to ask for. And so instead finds herself in trouble. This is the 1850s. There aren't really a lot of
There
options for
aren't.
her.
Yeah. No.
And so she oldest daughters her way out of this. And she's like, I'm going
Yeah.
to go get some papers and I'm going to go start my life over somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
going to do it by myself. I'm just
Mhm.
going to be a widow. I know a good forger because Franny can forge
That's
paperwork,
right.
so I'm going to make this work and I'm just going to get it done my way. And I find that in the context of the mid 2000s to be very interesting to me because
Yeah.
that's the world we were living in. Like we were taught nothing.
Right.
And it was like, good luck. you
No,
know,
I get that, and I
Try to avoid
appreciate
it.
that. Yeah, saying that and putting in that context, I do appreciate it more. I don't know. I'm one of those people that I mean, I'm 42 and childless and fine with it. And so I'm one of those people where every book, not every book does, but every book ends
Yeah.
with, marriage and children. I'm like, okay, fine. But like, so it's a
Yeah.
little bit like, what was the point? But I get that. I get you saying that. And I kind of thought it would be coming because, like, maybe this is just me as a reader or Lorraine's skill or whatever, but I had a little bit of a premonition because when they do come together, like, I'm just not explicit about it, but she says something about him spending in her at some point, basically. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, Lorraine documented that for us.
Yeah. I'm
And
like,
what's really interesting is like when I'm going to be so fascinated when you read the whole series, like to come
okay.
back and talk to you a little bit because like the way each of the scoundrels approach like contraception is
Mhm.
very interesting. They all think about like the potential for a baby a different way. And like Luke
Okay.
doesn't even consider it. He's
No,
just like,
neither
whatever,
of them
I'm
do.
having a good time. And then, but like Jack Dodger, very different beast in
Okay.
every single way. James Swindler, very different. Bill, very different. But like Luke is just, he's oblivious. I can't tell you how many times, Andie, I wrote in my notes, this man is a dummy. I was
Mhm.
like, he's so stupid. He's so dumb. He's so dumb. But he doesn't even think about it. It does not
Yeah,
even cross his mind that
does
this woman
not.
who is number one, a virgin, and number two, has had zero experience. Like she tells him her first kiss was with him in his
Right.
library when he just like
Right.
planted one on her. And he assumes this woman knows anything. Like
Yeah.
he's so dumb.
Yeah.
And what I really love too about Lorraine, this is just something else like that she does uniquely that I think a lot of other historical authors don't do, is that she is very willing to confront the fact that there wasn't really any reliable contraception in the
Right.
mid 19th century. Like there were some options, like there were some sponges you could pull
Mhm.
out, but like there's a term for people who do that. It's called parrots. Like there's not a lot of like reliable options on the
Yeah.
market for people in this era. And so like there are consequences sometimes.
Mhm.
And she's the only author I've ever read who gets me on board with Secret Baby. Like, I don't understand what kind of, drugs she's putting in her book, but I'm like, yeah, I'll take the Secret Baby from Lorraine.
Okay.
I'll do it. It's fine. But like, that's also something that you kind of have to confront in these books is like, okay, so where do we walk that line between what we want as a modern audience, but also
Yeah.
the reality of what these women went through? And reading this book today in
Mhm.
2026, when it's getting harder and harder for women to get access to the different things that
Yes.
they need, when bodily autonomy is being taken away, when it's getting harder, especially for young women, to get access to contraception in an
Yes.
affordable way because the health insurance has gotten catastrophically expensive and has been stripped back. Like, this book hits a lot harder for me with that context of understanding, like, oh, this isn't so far away from us. Like, there are probably young women today in states where they haven't had a lot of education, they don't have access to resources, who don't know anything,
Mhm.
who end up in the situation. Like, how would they handle it? And Catherine bosses up and she's like, I'm going to go to America and start over. Bye.
Well, that's just so Catherine at first. She's so competent. She's so
Yeah.
all of this. I mean, every point we've been making. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is why historical is still so relevant today and so important. And yes, maybe we're writing about a time 200 years ago or 150 years ago, but anyway, I know I'm preaching to the
No,
choir.
it's completely relevant. I mean, this book,
Mhm.
again, we think about written probably in 2006, and here we're confronting domestic violence like directly on page with the understanding that 12 years prior was when marital rape was finally made a crime in all 50 states.
Yeah.
Like, it's really not that far removed. Lorraine Heath was writing. She was writing books when it finally became a crime in all 50 states.
Yeah.
So, you know, historical romance is eternally relevant. It's evergreen. It is an evergreen genre and
Yeah.
it is always relevant.
Yes. It is not entirely historical, but
No.
yeah. No, it's fantastic. I loved it. I loved it. I loved this book. It was, I mean, yes, it was bonkers, but it wasn't. Like, again, she's just so masterful that she makes it all work. And you're like, I mean, it was like, this is going to sound so crazy, but I'm going to flash back to high school when one of the books we had to read in my junior year English class was Ethan Frome. And I don't know if people know that book. It's by Edith Wharton.
I had to read that book the summer before my sophomore year of high school. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and I've never read it since. I don't remember the particulars. This was over 20 years ago, but I just remember essentially this man, Ethan Frome, is so just has such a miserable life. He's so depressed. His wife is horrendous. I believe she's an invalid. She's sick. She's horrible to him, whatever. And he falls in love with her cousin who's like caring for her. And like that book just made me want to go against like everything I believe in a day-to-day sense of like, yes, have the affair with her, be happy. And then like they have this accident at the end that's maybe not an accident. Maybe they were trying to kill themselves a little bit. And you're like, oh, maybe it would have been better if they had just died because their lives are so horrible. Like, and it just made my brain like have to like rationalize all these terrible things, which is what a good book should do because it should make you question, empathize, get in another person's head, understand their situation. This is why we read. This is why I read. And I felt that way reading this book. I'm like, oh, Lorraine, I just want him dead. Like, just kill frickin' Avondale. Like, I don't care. Like, And so
Yeah. We're out
wow.
here plotting murder now.
Yeah, I know. So,
Great.
but a good writer can do that because the thing is, life is not black and white. And our morals and the way society sets rules around things like is very arbitrary sometimes, as we've just discussed. And, laws are stupid, like saying that women are the property of their husband and that marital rape is okay and it's just it's not as easy, and I love when someone can show us a complex character that shows how layered that is, and she just did that expertly, and in her other books, I mean, I mentioned Waking Up with the Duke. Again, I haven't read tons of her books, but, I mean, the premise of that book, again, spoilers for people, but, like,
Well, it's on the first page. I don't think it's a
I
spoiler if it's
know,
the
but
first sentence of
essentially
the book.
yeah, our hero, his best friend who is unable, I won't get into all of it, but he's unable to sire child with his wife. And he basically approaches his best friend. Is like, I want you to sleep with my wife and get her pregnant so I can have an heir. And he's like, oh shit, because I've been secretly in love with her for a long time. But anyways.
Let me tell you, the first book of that series is actually the one that I came very close to
Mhm.
suggesting because that's actually my favorite book of that series. I know it's a very hot take. Most people would disagree with me, but it's my favorite, so I get to have it.
And what's it called?
Um, it's called Passions of a Wicked Earl,
Okay.
and the opening of that book has cheating on page in the first chapter.
Okay.
And there's like a crazy mistress, like it is everything, like it's just banana pants and I love it. And I'm like, how does she make this work? But it's like, it's just, I think really great writing makes you ask that question. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you make this work? Especially in romance where we have very familiar beats, we have
Hmm.
familiar tropes. We all know the HEA is coming.
Yes.
If you don't have the HEA, you can't sit with us. But we
Exactly.
all know that it's coming. We all know the architecture of a romance. So the question for us always is, how do you get us there?
Yes.
That's always the question. And I think with Lorraine, I'm constantly fascinated by how she gets us there.
Hmm.
And she just always sucks me in.
She's great. I mean, like I said, I've only read 3, but I got to
Well,
read.
there's plenty more for
There's
you.
so many more, and I need to. Okay, so Passions of a Wicked Earl.
That's what,
Um,
like, it's wild. It's a wild book. I love it. It's one of my most reread Lorraine's just because it's nuts. I
I
love
love
it.
it. So what other books would you like? Let's go back to her Texas days. What books would you
Mhm.
recommend someone maybe start with there?
Yeah, so there are two on ramps for her in that era. I have a full reading guide linked on my Instagram too, if anybody's
Okay,
interested.
well then I
I
will
wrote
find that and I will link to
I
that
wrote
in
up
our
a
show
full
notes.
reading guide.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to get on board with Lorraine in her Texas era, two options. The first would be The Rogues in Texas, which is a series about three British like aristocrats who get shipped by their fathers to 1865 Texas because they are rakes and rapscallions, and they end up working on a cotton farm with like a bunch of widows
Hmm.
and things happen. The second book of that series has one of the most devastating situations I've ever seen on page in a book. Like, you want
Oh,
to talk about an author just going for it, who's like, I'm just going to rip your guts out and see what happens. That's that book.
okay.
Um, the other on-ramp in that era of her writing would be the Texas trilogy. So the first
Okay.
book of that series is Texas Destiny. And this book is a like road trip romance through the backwater of Texas. So the hero of this book, Houston, these are three brothers named Houston, Dallas, and Austin.
Oh my God. I love it.
Like, Lorraine's just going for it. So he
I
goes to
love
the
it.
train station to pick up his brother Dallas's mail order bride, and they get like bitten by snakes, they get caught in a flood, they're in a stampede, like everything happens to them
Oh
on the
my
way
God.
back to the ranch. And like it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Both of those are good on-ramps for her.
Hmm.
Her other Texas books you shouldn't read until you've read Rogues in Texas because it's the second gen series.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
so like you kind of need the context. There's one book in that series that like really just doesn't stand alone great. So those would be the ones I would go to if you're looking for her Texas books.
Hmm.
She also wrote some stuff later on in the early 2000s that are like the Dollar Princesses, and deal with that sort of stuff. But those are great. Like I love those books. But if you want like the Western flair, that's where you should start.
Okay. And then when we get to England, obviously the Scoundrel of St. James is the first series. And then he said the
Mhm.
Gentleman is the second gen, the Gentleman of St.
So
James.
the Scandalous Gentleman of St. James is the second gen series to this one, but there are like four series that sit in the middle.
Okay.
And they're all based in the same world.
Okay.
So you can kind of like, if you've read The Scoundrels of St. James, like you have the baseline for everything that she's going to do going forward. There are a couple of series that overlap quite a bit. So The Sins for All Seasons and the Once Upon a Dukedom overlap a lot because
Okay.
the last book of Sins for All Seasons, the heroine of that book is the sister of the two brothers who are in Once Upon a Dukedom. So there's like familial overlap. And then Once Upon a Dukedom overlaps with the chessmen because King, the hero of the Duchess Hunt, is sort of like one of the members of the chessmen. It all overlaps. It all gets a little bit messy. But this series, like if you read The Scoundrels of St. James, you can really kind of go anywhere with Lorraine. Like
Okay.
it's sort of a choose your own adventure from there. But yeah, if you're nuts like me and you really like to know how every single Lego is stacked, like if you need to have like if you're the person who actually reads the IKEA instructions when you go to build furniture, if you are that person, my reading guide is available for you. If
Okay.
not, I mean, there are plenty of chaos readers out there that I know who've just like bounced in at random points in Lorraine's backlist. They've had a great time.
Mhm.
That's not me. That's not how my brain works. But she's such a good writer that you absolutely can.
Love it. Love it. I will find that reading guide and link to that in the show notes. So it'll be kind of, if you're listening to this as podcast, it'll be in the episode info. You can find it on the website. If you're watching on YouTube, it's below here. Um, but it'll definitely be there. And then the one last thing I have to talk about before we wrap this up, because I know I emailed you about this, but I have to say, I mean, I love this entire book. And I normally I can handle bonkers if it's realistic bonkers like this, but other
Mhm.
times I'm like, okay, you're a little much for me. But this was great. I loved it. But what I really loved in this book, I am just absolute trash when it comes to caretaking stuff. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's my favorite. I've written it into like all my books. It's my favorite. And there's like two almost back to back, just glorious scenes in here. And they each have a chance to take care of each other. And it's so great. And at one point, she's injured protecting him, and which really affects him and moves him. But she's injured protecting
Well,
him.
because he has his savior complex and
Yes.
somebody stepped in to save him.
Yeah, like, "What? You know, someone cares about me? Oh." Um, but she has to get some stitches, and she's, rightfully terrified because they can only do so much to, numb your pain at that point.
Whiskey.
Yeah, and so to distract her, he really wanted to, but he just, like, kisses the crap out of her while his friend stitches up her hand, and it's just like, whew, it's beautiful. And then later we didn't really talk about this. This is a whole other thing, but that's for another day. But he suffers from really bad headaches. I would call them migraines, but um that hit him whenever he's on the verge of maybe remembering something from his childhood.
We love a
Um
psychosomatic headache.
we love it. Yeah. So he the last book we discussed was Lord of Scoundrels, so it's very Dane's arm, it's his head. Um but he has these terrible headaches and she comes and takes care of him, which means she just ends up spending the night in his bed with her head on his chest. I mean, it's
Well, and then
just
Andy, he has the best sleep of his life.
he does.
Because
Of
that's how it
course,
works. When you meet your
because he can
person,
rest with her.
you then
Yeah.
have the best sleep of your life. That's how you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Lorraine keeps us fed. She knows what we want as readers. Like
Yes.
she's not a very tropey writer. Like that's just not her thing. She's much more interested in like the nitty-gritty of the story versus
Mhm.
like kind of checking the boxes. But occasionally she does. And when she does, it's real
Well,
good.
she knows those little moments that just make us go a little bit feral. And
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, like, you
Yeah.
may not.
Catherine rubbing his temples. Sure.
Yeah, I know. I was here for it. I was here for every second of it. I ate it up. I loved it.
Yeah, and the
Um,
fact that it's Catherine who shows up and everybody else is like, "Luke's fine." Like, Luke doesn't like
yes.
and he's like, "Well, they all just know that I'm down with a headache. Like, if I don't show up, they just know." But nobody bothers
Yeah.
to come check on him, and it's Catherine who shows up.
Yeah.
Again, how we know that she is endgame.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we know these things because that's how romance works, and they're together on the
Yes.
page, but yeah, no, it was great. She is great, and I need to read a lot more Lorraine, because like I said, I'm 3 in now to the 56, um, but they've all been wonderful. So, very
Yeah, they're
excited to
just
read
banger
more.
after banger.
Very excited to read more, and excited to read some of the Texas because that is not very that's just I fully admit I've already admitted on here many times how limited my reading is, which is crazy since I'm writing this genre. Um, but I haven't read as much in America. I've read a little bit of Ms. Bev, but not a ton. And that's like a whole new world for me. I'm very excited.
I mean, I've been reading in the genre forever, and I'm
Hmm.
super underread on Westerns. The only Westerns I had read were Miss Bev's. And that was, again, just because my library when I was a teenager had a lot of her books.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
was not, anything that I was consciously doing. It was just like they were there, and so I was like, "Great, I'll read them because they're there
Yeah.
on the shelf." So, yeah, I'm very underread in Westerns as well. It's just
I know.
not something I spend a lot of
It's a whole
time
new
with.
world. I know. But Pam's great at exploring new things. I'm currently reading a book that she suggested to me because I was like, I need to read some Harlequins because you talk them up all the time. And she asked me what I'm into. And I said, well, I want to try some Vikings. So I just started I'm going to blank it on the title now, but it's the Nun Bride for the
Oh, None for the
Viking.
Viking Warrior.
Yes.
Yes, yes, Lucy
Yes.
Morris.
Yeah.
Lucy Morris writes a banger. So that book is my ultimate slump buster. If anybody is ever in a reading slump, I'm like, this is the book you should be reading.
There you go. I mean,
Like, I don't care what you read. If you are in a slump, this is the book that you should be reading.
yeah. So if you're into some Vikings or you just need to get out of a slump, I mean, I'll
Yeah.
link that one below as well because I'm enjoying it thus far. I'm not very far in, but it's good times. So everyone, basically, I'm just saying go follow Pam on Instagram or TikTok and just listen to what she has to say because she knows of what she speaks and it's great. With that, I will wrap it up and say thank you so, 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 so much for joining me today and telling me to read this book because it was fantastic and I'm super excited. And if you ever want to come back, you just let me know because this was great.
I'm always available to chat, Lorraine. I'm
All
I'm
right.
always down to talk about my love, my life, Lorraine Heath.
Maybe we'll
Thanks,
have to
Andie. It
do a
was great.
Western.
Oh, I would love that. It
Yeah.
was great to be here. I had a lot of fun. It was really fun getting to go back to this book, like
Yeah.
having an excuse to go back to it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, I will link stuff below so you can know where to find Pam, where to follow her. We'll do the reading guide, and I'll highlight some of the books we talked about today as well. And if you guys want to, make sure you're following First Encounter, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff on your podcast on YouTube. We do have a Discord. It's not super active yet because we're new. We're figuring it out. But if you want to join, there's a link on where to do that on the website, so you can do that. And do have Patreon, which you don't need to support it, but I would super appreciate it.
You should.
Yes. Pam is one of
I
my
do.
first
You should.
supporters. Pam is one of my first supporters, and I so appreciate her for that. Because let's be real, indie author life, it's hard. But
Well, if we want more historical romance, we have to go out and support more historical romance with
yes,
our dollars
yes,
because that is the way that the genre grows.
that is the way the genre grows. And more on that to come very soon because there's plans in the work for ways we can support and expand historical romance, and that's all I'm going to say today. But all right, well, thank you again so much, Pam, and everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode and go read some Lorraine Heath. Bye.